According to Albertus Magnus, Alexander the Great found the emerald tablet in the tomb of Hermes Trismegistus. He then brought the tablet to Heliopolis, where he put it on public display.
In broad structure, therefore, we have this work that has come down to us as the divine vision of Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus, who is described as a priest of the mysteries of Egypt, and whose writings, according to their own content, bear not the stamp of a man, but the stamp of heaven. And in this work, Hermes is advanced as a prophet, as a minister and missionary of God, as one peculiarly and divinely favored to reveal an essential doctrine to mankind.
In truth, without deceit, certain and most veritable. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. And just as all things have come from this one thing, through the meditation of one mind, so do all created things originate from the one thing, through transformation. Its father is the sun, its mother the moon. The wind carries it in its belly, its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all, the consecration of the universe. Its inherent strength is perfected. If it is turned into earth, separated the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, gently and with great ingenuity. It rises from earth to heaven and descends again to earth, thereby combining within itself the powers of both the above and below. Thus will you obtain the glory of the whole universe. All obscurity will be clear to you. This is the greatest force of all powers, because it overcomes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. In this way was the universe created. From this come many wondrous applications, because this is the pattern. Therefore am I called Thrice Greatest Hermes, having all three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. Herein I have completely explained the operation of the sun. What you just heard was the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. Now the original Emerald Tablet of Hermes comes in an ancient language, ancient Phoenician alphabet, which was a common language in the ancient world before Latin. However, there's many translations of this tablet. There's Arabic, Latin, Greek, German, there's English. We got Jabir ibn Hayyan, who made a translation. Isaac Newton in 1680 made a translation. Madame Blavatsky from the Theosophical Society made a translation. Giorgio Bito from Aurelium Occulte Philosorium had made a translation. Kriegsmann's made a translation. Sigismund Backstrom, Fulcanelli, Idris Shah, and even Chinese translations have been made. Also many commentaries as well. The tablet first appeared in the West in editions of the Pseudo-Aristotelian Secretum Secretorium, which was actually a translation of the Kitab-Sir al-Asar, a book of advice to kings, which was translated into Latin by Johannes Hesplanus in 1140 and by Philip of Tripoli in 1243. Other translations of the tablet have been made during the same period by Plato of Tivoli and Hugh of Santalla, perhaps from different sources. The date of the Kitab-Sir al-Asar is uncertain, though 800 Common Era has been suggested, and it is not clear when the tablet became part of his work. Holiard was the first to find another early Arabic version in the Kitab Ustakas al-Us al-Thani, attributed to Jabir, Shortly after, Ruska founded another version appended to the Kitab Sir al-Khalika, Book of the Sacred Creation and the Art of Nature, which is also known as the Kitab Balayana al-Hakim-Fililal. It has been proposed that this may have been written as early as 650, in the early days of Islamic expansion, and was definitely finished by the Caliphate of Al-Amanah. Scholars have seen similarities between this book and the Syriac Book of Treasures written by Job of Edessa in the 9th century, and more interestingly, the Greek writings of the Bishop of Nemesis and Emesa in Syria in the mid-4th century. However, though this suggests a possible Syriac source, none of these writings contain the tablet. Bellianus is usually identified with Apollonius of Tyana, a messiah-like person from the 1st century. There is little evidence to connect him with the Kitab Balibius, and even if there was, the story implies that Bellianus found the tablet rather than wrote it, and that recent discoveries of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi test suggest the hiding text in the caves is not impossible, even if we did have the pyramids before us. Ruska has suggested its origin further east, and Needham has proposed an origin in China. Holmiar, Davis, and Anand all consider this tablet may be one of the earliest of all alchemical works we have that survives. It should be remarked that apparently the Greeks and the Egyptians used the term translated as emerald, for emeralds meaning green granite, and perhaps green jasper. In medieval times, the emerald table of the Gothic kings of Spain and the Sacrocatina dish, said to have belonged to the Queen of Sheba, to have been used at least at the Last Supper, and to be made of emerald, were made of green glass. Hortilanus says that our stone, which was created by God, was born and came forth from a confused mass, containing in itself all elements, and hence our stone was born by this single miracle. It is not true of all things flow from one thing, from the goodness of the one, and that whatever is joined to unity cannot be diverse, but rather fructifies by means of the simplicity and adaptability of the one. Who was born from unity? It is not the ternary. Take note, unity is unmixed, the binary is compounded, and the ternary is reduced to simplicity of unity. I, 𝋹📇📑𓀷📢, am not of 3 minds, but persist in a single integrated mind, taking pleasure in the ternary, which gives birth to marvelous offspring. The undivided visible light of the unconditioned one is refracted into multiplicity by the prism of the spirit. As the spirit contemplates the unity without full comprehension, it manifests the many-sided all, just as lens transmits the light and transmits as a bundle of rays. Albert Magnus, of the material, raising it to the properties of air, and why he says the wind carries the material of the stone in its belly is that when the material is placed in an alembic, which is a vessel made by like those of the rose water, is prepared. Then by evaporated it is rendered subtle, and is raised towards the alembic of a watery, oily liquor, with all the powers of the elements. In metals, the moisture is not separated from the dryness, but it is dissolved in it. And being so dissolved, it moves about where there has been swallowed by the earth, and were moving about in its bowels. And on this account Һермῆs said, the mother of the metal is the earth that carries it in her belly. Thrasamius says, our philosophy is celestial, not worldly, in order that we may faithfully behold, by means of a direct intuition of the mind through the faith of knowledge, that principle we call God. Study generates knowledge. Knowledge prepares love. Love, similarity. Similarity, communion. Communion, virtue. Virtue, dignity. Dignity, power. And power performs the miracle. Newton, inferior and superior, fixed and volatile, sulfur and quicksilver, have a similar nature and are one thing, like man and wife, for they differ from one another only by a degree of digestion of maturity. Sulfur is a mature quicksilver, and quicksilver is immature sulfur. And on the account of its affinity, they unite like male and female, and they act on each other. And through that action, they are mutually transmuted in each other and procreate a more noble offspring to accomplish the miracles of this one thing. And just as things were created from the chaos by the design of one God, so in our art all things are born from this one thing, which is our chaos, by the design of our artificer, and the skillful adaptation of things, and the generation of this similar to the human, truly from a father and mother. Blavatsky. The mysterious thing is the universal, magical agent, the astral light, which in the correlations of this forces furnishes the alchemist, the philosopher's stone, and the elixir of life. Hermetic philosophy names it Azoth, the soul of the world, the celestial version, the great 𝓹𝓕mis. Hermes said the secret of everything and the life of everything is water. This water becomes in wheat, ferment in the vine, wine in the olive oil. The beginning of the child is from water. Regarding the spiritual water and the sanctified of thirsty earth, Һρμῆς the Great, crowned with the glorious wisdom and sublime sciences, truth it is, indubitable, certain and correct, that the high is from the low, and the low is from the high. They bring about the wonders through the one, just as the things produce from that one essence by a single preparation, later by a statement. It is the father as the sun, and its mother is the moon. They're male and female. They are the two birds which are linked together in the pictures given regarding the beginning of the operation, and from them the spiritual tinctures are produced. And similarly, they are at the end of operation, later in the statement. The subtle is more honorable than the gross. He begins by subtle, the divine spiritual water, and by the gross, the earthly body. As for the later statement, with gentleness and wisdom, it will ascend from the earth to the sky, and will take fire from the higher lights. He means by this the distillation and raising of the water into the air. As for his later statement, it will descend to the earth, containing the strength of the high and the low. He means by this the breathing of the Ishtanashk of the air, and the taking of the spirit, and its subsequent elevation to the highest degree of heat. And it is fire, and the low is in the body, and its content of the controlling earthly power, while imparts the colors, those higher powers submerged in it. The natural operation and decay causes it to be manifest, and hence the strength of the earth, and of the air, and of the higher fire pass into it. Later, he said, it will become the high and the low, because it is found in the light of lights, and consequently the darkness will flee from it. There's a lot of debate and discussion over the centuries of what this tablet actually means, but this last dissertation that I just read makes a lot of sense. A baptismal ceremony of the sun and the moon and the earth, the Trinity. Be like water, as Bruce Lee would say, become the cup. When water enters the cup, it becomes the cup. Water flows and water crashes.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
𝓹𝅆mes Trismegistus is a mythical character who is identified with an actual historical character also, somewhere around the 3rd century BC. He's also identified with the god Thoth and the Roman god Mercury. He is the author of the Hermetica. Now the Hermetica I'm going to do another video about. Just to give you a brief detail of what is in this Hermetica. It is a dialogue between a father and a son, and the son is the divine heir of all things. There's these sermons given between Thoth and Hermes. So in the Corpus Hermeticum, which is the oldest manuscript we have, is from the 3rd century AD. And interestingly enough, in chapter 7, it's called the Secret Sermon of the Mount, and his son Thoth. Trismegistus says to him, "In the manner of the man is he that born thus born, for in this point I am clean deprived of the essence of understanding. The Son of God will be another. God made the universe that in everything consists of all powers." And then Thoth replied, "Tell me a riddle, father, and do not speak as a father to his son." And Trismegistus replied, "Son, things of this kind are not taught, but are by God, when he pleases, brought to remembrance." And I'm going to do another video about the divine Pymander, but I wanted to give you an example of the dialogue that exists inside the Corpus Hermeticum. There's also another writing called the 𝋹🔸📸📹📸📸. The 𝋹🔸📸📸📸 is 7 hermetic principles given forth by Hermes. And this is incredible. A lot of this stuff has been yet to be debunked by modern science, and most of it is actually being validated by quantum physics. For example, I'll tell you what the 7 hermetic principles are real quick. Now this will be a topic for another video as well. 7 hermetic principles upon the hermetic philosophy are as follows. Number 1, the principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. Number 2, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. Number 3, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Number 4, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has a pair of opposites. Unlike the same, opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes are but reconciled. Number 5, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall, and the pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Number 6, the principle of cause and effect. Everything causes its effect. Everything effect has a cause. Everything happens according to the law. Chance is but a name for law, not recognized. There are many places of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And 7, principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has a masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. And these 7 hermetic principles are the guidelines of the hermetic philosophy. The Emerald Tablet is the foundation for the entire hermetic philosophy. This path of wisdom, this spiritual path, whatever you want to call it, was tried to be destroyed by the early church under Theodosius and under the popes. They wanted this to be erased from history because, hey, it undermines Christianity, it makes it look like we're copying them. Whatever the reasons are, they tried to erase this, but the Nag-Hammadi scriptures were found in Egypt, and a lot of this stuff has been recovered. And from the 17th century onward, there's been people trying to translate this into English, translate it into Arabic, and here we are. And if you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it. Thank you.
Yet through it all, there runs a thread of intellectualism, so broad in its scope, so deep in its implication, that in all probabilities it decreed or destined that the work should have a minority audience, that it could only be understandable by certain types of persons. While it was a wonderful picture story, it was only for a certain kind of minds. These minds were not sufficient in number to integrate around this work the kind of religion or the kind of a common descent of beliefs which we find with simpler, more obvious revelations.